there, this is Chris Goff, and in this tip of the week, I want to share some tips when sending direct mail. And as you may already know, direct mail is going to be one of the best ways to market for sellers, and it's affordable. I've been using direct mail since day one, but back then I mailed letters. And the funny thing is, this letter is still being used today. You can actually find it in step 2. So let's just get into it. But before I do, let me show you exactly where that letter is. So if I go to my property section, just click on any property. And this property section, just if you're new, is really geared for the properties that you're working. So as I get to step 2, you're going to scroll down and click on the print letter. Now, this letter I'm referring to is the very last letter, called the property owner letter. So if you're just, hey, I couldn't find a phone number, I need to send a letter out, and it's just kind of one here, one there, this is going to be a great letter for you to use. So anyways, that's where it is. Let's get back into REIPro. All right, the very first thing that I want to share with you are some tips on our lead sources, because we don't want you working a strategy that may not fit the type of lead source. Okay, so I want to review them and just kind of share some tips on what strategies might work best for the different types of lead sources. So we look at vacant properties. Now, this is going to be great for just about any kind of investment, but it does cater to wholesaling and retailing. Now, generally, these are going to be distressed homes, but at the end of the day, you can do just about anything with a vacant property. Next, what we have are absentee owners. Now, absentee owners are going to be not just great for wholesaling and retailing, but lease options and seller financing are also going to be great strategies with them. And what I love about absentee owners is, let's say lease options, is that you can target properties with very little equity. And I mean, who actually targets properties with no equity? Almost every investor targets properties with no equity, or with equity. But if you are working the lease option business, you can actually target so many more properties that might have just a little bit of equity, like 10 to 30% equity. And those could set up very well, even for a seller finance. Next one is pre-foreclosures. Now, this is by far the most motivated type of seller, and is a very specific strategy that includes either seller financing or retailing. So even if you're in pre-foreclosure, you could just go cash them out, fix up the property, and move on. Or you could go in and seller finance the property, fix the property up. Once you sell, then would pay off the original loan, and so forth. So we're really working two types of strategies, but you could also wholesale this, and it's a thing that I've been teaching people. If you understand the pre-foreclosure business, how to structure the numbers and wholesaling, you could pass that great deal on to an investor that wants to go in and purchase this property. So really, those 3 particular strategies are going to work really well. Now, we also have bank-owned. So you either need money or access to money to purchase them, and most likely you're going to need a realtor to help you submit the offers and go through that process. So this lead source is primarily there for you to see what properties are bank-owned, not necessarily sending them direct mail. I'm not going to put a direct mail package together and send it to Bank of America. Now, could you contact some maybe local small banks? Absolutely. But generally speaking, bank-owned wouldn't be one that I would actually send direct mail out to. Next, we have properties that are in a trust. Now, a lot of people ask me, why trust? Well, let me just give you a few different reasons. But what I like about this is, people put properties in a trust for either some asset protection, or they want to pass it along to maybe, a family member when they move on. So timing is really the key. But many investors approach these types of leads, and this is exactly why I like them. Is, you look at an investor does it really matter what type of property or what situation? No, not really, as long as the numbers work out at the end of the day. But how many people actually target them? And this is one of the reasons that I like it. So next, high and low equity. And I just want to kind of clarify these particular 2. So this is really geared for more, I would say, the real estate agents out there that are looking to maybe list their property, because these are properties or owners that actually live there, and that's by our definition. Okay, so generally these are going to be more realtors that are going to look for these types of properties because they do, the owner actually does live in them. Now, again, doesn't mean that an investor can't. It's just generally speaking here. We look at the upside down. These leads could actually possibly be great short sales. You think about the owner, they owe more than what the current value is. So you would need money or access to money to even pursue the upside down. And then we have free and clear. So free and clear leads are leads that have no recorded mortgage. And this type of lead would be great for just about any kind of strategy, especially I want you to think about this seller financing, because you're usually dealing with someone that first paid cash for the property. So they're in a great financial position already. And second, these people really don't accept lowball offers unless some emergency happened in their life. So these are generally investors that want to make more money, and seller financing is exactly that. And of course, we do have a list of cash buyers and shortcut to Craigslist over here. All right, so these are not the only lead sources out there. Let me just say that. These are the ones we have in REIPro. This doesn't mean that you just limit yourself to these. You definitely have other lead sources out there, such as tax liens, divorces, bankruptcies, which I don't personally mess with, expired listings, and a lot more that you can either get locally, or you can obviously purchase a list and upload them into REIPro so you can take advantage of our powerful direct mail marketing engine. Now, I do get this question a lot. So why don't we have tax liens or divorces or any other type of list out there? And the reason is that we cannot find a reputable and dependable company that provides this info on a national scale. So if you do purchase a list elsewhere, just be cautious. All right, so let's choose a lead source and let's go ahead and build out a direct mail campaign. I'm going to choose Absentee Owner because this really kind of caters just about any kind of strategy. And I'm going to select Harris County, Texas. So this is a big area. An area I'm very familiar with. And so it's going to take a second, especially these larger areas. It's going to take a second to load because, as you can see, 318,000 leads here. Now, you will see on the map, there are not 318,000 dots on the map because it would look like one big red dot here. We do default it to the first 100 properties here. Now, obviously, we want to send direct mail. We're not going to send direct mail to 318,000 properties. What we want to do is start to filter these lists down. And here's where I want to give you some tips on this. So again, locations, we could restrict the location here. I didn't have to just generally take, Harris County, because this is a big area. So, you might live in Humble, Texas, where some of you, you're in Missouri City. So you might want to target a little bit closer, as I say, your backyard. But just for an example purpose, I want to take this whole general area and start filtering these down. Now, some of your common filters are going to be price. If you're the investor that focuses, at a certain price range, and just keep in mind that the majority of homes out there are going to be in what we call that middle price range. And, so if you understand your local market, you really want to target that middle price range. That's where the majority of your buyers are going to be. But that's where all your competition is too. So you might want to be in a different marketplace. But again, I like to use price at the very end. So it's one of those that I'm going to come back to. Potential equity, again, depending on what strategy you're working. If you're wholesaling, you definitely need to have potential equity in these properties. You might select 50%. But if you're working the lease option, or we'll say in Texas now, the seller finance business, or if you're a lease option in a different state, then you might, put in here 10% or 5% as the minimum. And then maybe you set that maximum. So you're really targeting properties that have very little equity. And a lot of people think that they can't sell because they don't have enough equity. Again, this could open up the door for you here. In this example, let's just go ahead and do that, because I think anybody can just go in and say, hey, I want to see all properties with 50% equity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to set actually, you know what? Let's do 5 to 30. on there. Now, I could apply changes with this one change, but I'm actually going to be making multiple changes here. Now, you could be the investor that says, hey, I only want to see properties that's 3-bedroom. Obviously, your majority of buyers are going to want at least a 3-bedroom, but you could be in an area that has a ton of condos, and there's a lot of 2-bedroom, 2-bath condos. So in this example, we're going to go 3. All right, property type, we do default it to what's called all residential. These are being labeled by your county. Again, every county does kind of label these a little bit different. I wish it were a perfect system, but each county may label these a little bit different. The one thing I like to do and use in this example is I just want to target single family properties. But again, you could target anything in here, and you could target the commercial as well. So it's totally up to you. I'm going to scroll down here. Bathrooms, is that important? You might want to set a minimum amount of bathrooms on this as well. So if we go through and say, hey, I need to see at least 2. And then property size, lot size, year built. You can even get down to a subdivision, only assuming that your county does publish the subdivision in the last date sold. For me, not too, big on the rest of the filters personally, because I know at the end of the day, it really does come down to the situation, which then determines their motivation. And, but hey, there are investors that look, these are the only types of properties that I buy, and that's great. And you can go in and filter them down. Owners. So one thing I like to do is just remove company owned. Number one, I work multiple strategies, so I'm not a one-shoe-fits-all type of investor, and I want to deal with somebody that can make a decision. That's generally going to be the owner. Now, being an absentee owner, do we want to target absentee owners that are in the state of Texas or outside of the state of Texas? At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter to me, because it really does come down to their situation. You could own a property in Harris County and live in Dallas, Texas, and go through a divorce just as much as if you lived in Los Angeles. So, to me, I'm going to leave that as any. You could change the result settings on how many rows are returned. And then, of course, we're going to build out a direct mail campaign. So from here, remember, I'm going to come back to price. I want to go ahead and apply these changes. Now, how many leads do we actually go down to? So we went from 318,000 down to 93,000. Now is where I want to come back and really start narrowing my price. So, I'm just going to throw out a number here and say 100,000 to 200,000. Let's go and see, how far does that actually drop down? So now we're down to 3,400. So again, we may want to change this to maybe, let's say 150 to 200. And even if I just stuck here, 2,700, as you can see, I may need to go and filter this down even more. Now, keep in mind, I am taking the entire county, which is an extremely large county, but at the same time, filter these down to a manageable list that basically comes down to what is your marketing budget for this month. Okay, so I'm going to say, I like this list. It's a targeted list for me. I'm going to go ahead and build a direct mail campaign. Now, if I want to, I can literally just go and start selecting all. Now, keep in mind, that's only going to show 100. Now, I could come over here, I could click 1,000, and that's going to give me 1,000 at a time, just to kind of simplify this process. So keep that in mind. Whoops, let me go back to that. So I have 1,000 of 27. I would need to go to the next page and so on until I have checked all of these properties. I'm just going to speed this process up, and let's just check the first 1,000. Now, what I want to do here is actually name it. And this is really just for you. So I might come in here and say 150 to 200K. Okay. And then I might say, this is what 5 to 30% equity. Okay. So it's just triggers for me as the user to identify, okay, that was this campaign. Because could I not come back and say, okay, now I want to check properties maybe from 200 to 250 with the same settings? You could definitely do that. I'm going to go ahead and hit add selected leads. And now those leads are in my direct mail campaign. So once that's done, you're going to see a little button right here. And now we can actually, I'm going to get rid of that. We could go to our direct mail and you're going to see that right here at the top. Now, you do have a couple of options, and let me just kind of give you some just general tips here. Do I send letters? Do I send postcards? Well, let me give you a big general tip. If you have high volume, so in this particular case, we have 1,000, I like to do postcards. If you're going to have low volume, then maybe you send letters. So the only time I'm going to really mail letters is either low volume or it's something very specific, maybe like a pre-foreclosure. So I might blast out several postcards the first time, but then I could always come back and maybe have more of a personal letter. So again, this is totally up to you. From our national study, postcards do generally work better. I know people try to get really fancy with handwritten and different color letters. Hey, if you've got something that's working for you, definitely continue doing that. But I'm going to go ahead and order postcards. Now, the very first thing here is we have what's called ListMate. Now, this is a service we kind of pass on to you because we do get charged. It's going to standardize your addresses. It's going to check for tax assessor issues and address errors on that side, duplicate records from your tax assessor. It's also going to check for a national change of address. So, a lot of people do move, and the tax office doesn't have their updated tax bill address. So it's actually going to do all this. And for 1,000 leads, $20, that's extremely cheap to standardize and check for errors because tax assessors are not perfect, unfortunately, out there. All right, so then we could come over and actually select our workflow. If I want to just send a mailer one time, kind of a one shot, then that's what I would do. I could also do what's called a single mailer drip campaign. So, maybe I don't want to send all 1,000 at one time. Maybe I just want to send 100 or I want to send 200 at a time. And how often do I want to send those? So this is a great way to say, hey, I'm going to pull all my leads in my area, but I want to break this up over the course of time. You could do that. I could select 2 or 3 mailers as well. So I might want to select, this postcard this time, and next week, I want to send this particular postcard. You could do that as well. In this example, we're just going to select a one-time single mailer here. So go ahead and click next. Now we got to go choose a postcard. And, as this video is being published now, it is coming up on Halloween. So we do have some different types of postcards kind of catered to the Halloween, just to be a little bit different. I think, being creative is definitely something you have to be in any business, no matter what business you're in, but definitely direct mail. So we want to be very unique and creative. So we do have other templates in here, and it's not just restricted to absentee owners. We have for all different types of lead sources. One of my favorites that's worked great for us is this first one with the lady and the child, because it comes across a little bit different. It's not the typical, like if I go to the We Buy Houses one, it's just different. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to go ahead and click next. And then basically we have enter contact. So how is the owner going to contact you? Now we do have what's called 2 lines. Now these lines, you can put anything in here. I might say my number here is maybe the first thing. And then maybe I want to put in my website address here. Okay. Now, from experience, phone number and website are really the 2 biggest ones you want to put in here. Now, if you don't have a website, put something else in here. But, some people, they'll call you. And some people want to go check you out. You get the best of both worlds. Now, if I hit refresh preview, you can actually see what that would look like on the postcard. Okay. Now, if I wanted to enter a return address, so if something happened and the card got returned, you could actually do that. It would actually display up at the top here beside the postage. And if you want one of the cards mailed to you, hey, I want to touch it. I want to see it. I want to see what people are actually getting. You could do that here as well. Just to speed this up, I'm going to click next. You're going to get a shot to approve. Does it look correct? Did you spell your phone number, your website correct? click approve, click next, and then you can go through the checkout process. Now, the great thing is we're running a great discount. So I know as of right now, we are running a campaign for Halloween. So if you do see this video in time, obviously you would get an additional discount right there. So now we're going to get these cards out. I think that's the biggest thing. So is to market your business. You're never going to make any money if you don't get the message out there. And you could be the best plumber, you could be the best this, but until you get your message out there, you're never going to make any money. Here's the thing though, a lot of people, they'll send like 9 postcards. It's like, really? 9? I mean, it's direct mail, right? So you need to have, as many as you can possibly afford to get out there, and probably as many times as you can get out there. And if I look at this, I'm going to spend $450 on this particular campaign, but how many deals do I need to get out of it? And now, sending direct mail or any other form of marketing is not, snap our fingers and all of a sudden sellers are going to call you. Okay. And that's where you have to get creative and also track your marketing and say, hey, this is the postcard that has worked for me, but also get creative and create your own postcards, upload them into REIPro and use those. And marketing is always testing, right? I wish things would just, every seller should call you and do a deal with you. I wish it worked that way. So anyways, hope these tips helped on building a direct mail campaign, and look forward to seeing you on our next training.